Rarities are flawed, with many extremely unique brawlers being in lower rarities, while brawlers that arguably aren't that unique are in quite high rarities. And that's the purpose of this video, which is to select some brawlers that I believe deserve a rarity change, whether it be to a higher rarity or to a lower one, and why. I'm getting close to 15k subscribers, so I'd appreciate if you guys subscribe to help me closer to that milestone. Second, join our Discord server. We have some fun stuff to do there, like our very own 1v1 ranked called Gauntlet, where you can win Monstro Miko, and more Brawl Talk skins in the future, or simply just have fun. Finally, consider becoming a channel member if you're interested in supporting out the channel and have ample disposable income for some cool perks, like watching videos early or getting to decide on future video ideas. I'm going to go class by class over brawlers that I think deserve a rarity upgrade. So obviously, some classes will get a lot of changes, and some will get none. Also, keep in mind I'm not going to talk about every single brawler that deserves a rarity change, or we'll be here until the next rarity releases for 10,000 credits. We can skip starter and rare, but in super rare, there's Carl. Having a boomerang attack is actually quite unique, and the only brawler that actually has some sort of a similar mechanic of an attack to that is Lumi. And it basically works nothing like Carl's, other than that the attacks can come back to her. Sure, Crow has the mutation or wasabi or whatever, but let's be real, who's counting that? Anyway, I think Carl definitely deserves a higher rarity than super rare, and probably should be an epic brawler. I also think Penny deserves to be an epic brawler. Her main attack and stats are nothing special, but her super is. A turret that can throw over walls is pretty unique, and led to Penny being considered an artillery for quite a long time before, rightfully, turning into a controller. Furthermore, her pouch's ability is very unique, and as far as I know, is the only brawler with a mechanic like that. Finally, for the super rares, I also believe Rico can be an epic brawler. Sure, now he doesn't require the most amount of skill, but he still requires some, knowing how to properly aim the attacks on walls, which walls to shoot on, and whatnot. Furthermore, he's one of only 2 brawlers that can bounce their attacks off of walls, and he's basically synonymous with bouncing off walls. Now on to epics. Meeple I believe deserves to be a mythic brawler. His main attack is the only one that can automatically home in on enemies, and the only brawler that can do something like that is Piper's gadget. Next, his super allows himself and his teammates to shoot through walls. Not only does this fit with his design of being a cheater, but this is another completely unique ability. Finally, I have to mention his gadget, Mansions of Meeple, as it once again fits with his cheater design, along with being the only thing in the game besides Sprout's super, and maybe the bad Jackie gadget that can trap enemies. Next up is Shade, who I also think deserves to be a mythic brawler. His main attack is somewhat unique, as it can go through walls and has a specific point where it does twice the damage. However, the real fun comes with his super, which allows him to go through walls, which no other brawler in the game can do, so he should definitely be at least a mythic brawler. My next pick is Sam, who I believe should be a mythic brawler. His entire gameplay is extremely unique and complex, and no other brawler's gameplay really resembles it. His Knuckle Buster's mechanic and the gameplay that revolves around it is nothing like any other mechanic in the game, and it really shouldn't be limited to an epic brawler. Next, I'm going to say Ash deserves to be a mythic brawler. His main attack is nothing too special, but his Rage Bar mechanic is very unique and special. He's the only brawler in the game that gets faster and stronger after taking damage from the enemy team other than Frank, and allows him to really fulfill his role as a tank. It also gives him interesting gameplay, as you have to balance around whether to have high health and low rage, or low rage and high health. Finally, his gadgets both have trade-offs involved with them, which is a surprisingly rare mechanic that should definitely be utilized more. Now, brawlers who should be pushed down from epic to super rare. First off, Pam. Pam is honestly a pretty basic brawler. Her main attack is nothing particularly special, and her super is just a simple healing turret. And while she is the only brawler in the game with a specific healing turret, it's still pretty basic and nothing particularly worthy of having her continue as an epic brawler. This one's a controversial pick, but I personally believe Piper should be a super rare brawler. Her main attack is one of the most basic attacks I've ever seen. A singular projectile for a sniper that deals more damage at a long range than a short range. Daring, are we? And her super is nothing too special either, it's just a simple escape tool. Overall, she's the most simple of the marksmen, and she definitely does not deserve to be on the same rarity as someone like Bonnie or Nani. Now, on to Mythics, and I believe Finks deserves to be a legendary brawler. She has a pretty unique main attack with the 3 projectiles, but that isn't even the best part. Her super is. A time slow / speed up ability is one of the most unique abilities I've seen in the game, and is definitely something a legendary brawler would deserve, not a mythic. Next, I think Juju is also deserving of the legendary rarity. Having a main attack that changes based on the environment that you are in is an insanely unique and creative ability, and to me, deserves the legendary rarity. Furthermore, she has some more rare abilities like being able to walk on water, and having a turret that can also walk on water. Next, Chuck should definitely be a legendary brawler. Just like Sam, he has one of the most unique playstyles in the game, and arguably even more unique than Sam's if that's even possible. His systems of posts is extremely unique, creative, and complex. Sure, we've been accustomed to it in heists, but even in outside of heist situations, there are a lot of complex patterns and text that can be used for maximum output. And overall, he's just a very complex brawler that is certainly deserving of a legendary rarity. This is a hot take as he's one of the most forgotten brawlers, but I think Ruffs could definitely make a case for being a legendary brawler. He's not the only brawler with a bouncing mechanic, but his mechanic is a little bit different than Rico's. However, his super is quite unique, giving his teammates, or himself, a permanent buff for as long as they survive. Furthermore, his healing buff star power is also extremely unique, and if it was actually buffed, it could be useful, and fit even more with Ruff's purpose of being a dog who buffs his teammates. Finally, his hypercharge charging up other brawlers' hypercharges is also a great and unique idea, and ties even more with his design. There are a lot of brawlers that could be moved down from Mythic, so let's start out with, unfortunately, Eve. Eve at one point definitely deserved a Mythic or even legendary rarity for being the only brawler to be able to go over water for a long time. Unfortunately, as we all know too well, other brawlers gained the ability to walk over water. And for Eve, the rest of her kit isn't the most unique, as her main attack resembles that of Colt, and her spawners aren't particularly special either. Overall, she's been screwed over from once being deserving of a legendary rarity, and now an epic rarity. Clancy is next, and for obvious reasons, he deserves to be an epic brawler or less. He literally just is the Walmart version of Surge, having the same exact mechanic of progressing in speed and range as he hits more shots. Being a near exact copy of another brawler should land him in the starting brawler tier, but more realistically, he deserves an epic rarity max. Mo is next, and he also deserves the epic rarity. His main attack is just another version of Spike's attack, and isn't really anything that special. You could argue that the super is really unique, but it's very similar to Bonnie's super, and overall, he's just a pretty boring brawler, and doesn't really deserve the mythic rarity compared to some of the other brawlers in that rarity. Finally, Otis. Just like Eve, there was once an argument for him being a mythic brawler, being the only brawler in the game to mute enemies. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case, as for example, Cordelius can mute enemies with his gadget. Furthermore, the rest of his kit just isn't unique enough to justify keeping a mythic rarity, with a basic main attack and a basic hypercharge. Now, onto legendary brawlers. Obviously not counting the rarity that shall not be named, these guys are the highest, so there won't be anyone going up. Rather, everyone I mentioned will be shifting downwards. First, Crow. Once upon a time, he was the only brawler in the game that could deal poison damage. Now, Byron, Angelo, Chester, Cordelius, Eve, and Willow can deal some sort of poison damage. What Crow has unique for him is that he reduces enemy healing with his poison. But let's be real, that doesn't really deserve a legendary rarity by itself, when time controlling abilities doesn't deserve a legendary rarity either. His super and unlockables are also nothing too special, and he's basically the equivalent of being rarity creeped. You thought power creep wouldn't be mentioned? It always finds a way, somehow or another. Next, Leon, for similar reasons to Crow. A quick summary of people who can go invisible after Leon's release. Sandy and his entire team, Kit with his gadget, and Juju with her gadget. Sure, it's still a rare ability, but like walking on water, even if it's a rare ability, it alone is not enough to justify a higher rarity. Once again, like Crow, he has been rarity creeped out of being deserving of a legendary rarity, and should probably be a mythic. Unfortunately, the other member of the OG legendaries is also getting cut from the legendary rarity. Spike's main attack is just not legendary worthy anymore, with things like Maisie's hypercharge, Hank's super, and Mo's main attack. His super is just a worse version of Lu's super, and his hypercharge is just a bigger version of his super. Overall, you could even make an argument for him being an epic brawler, but for now I'll just say mythic to not offend anyone. Next, Cordelis deserves to be a mythic brawler more than a legendary brawler. He used to be the only brawler in the game that could use the Shadow Realm, but with the release of Lily, that has changed. Sure, they use the Shadow Realm differently, but the rest of Cordelius' kit isn't particularly special either. Furthermore, it's very likely that the last member of their trio will also be able to use the Shadow Realm, and would fit very well if they were all mythic brawlers. Last and least is Kenji. This is probably the wrong time to talk negatively about him, as it's his own themed event, but somebody has to do it, right? Kenji to me honestly just feels more like an amalgamation of other brawlers rather than his own unique brawler. Obviously, the argument that, oh, this brawler has a combination of 6 different brawler mechanics, send them back to where they came from, isn't a really great one. However, it sort of fits with Kenji though. His healing after every attack resembles Edgar, his wide attack resembles BB, and his dash attack resembles Mortis. His super is quite unique, but overall I feel like he's more fit as a mythic brawler rather than a legendary brawler, as he doesn't bring anything too special or unique to the table. As for the rarity that shall not be named, I think Kaze can be shifted down. Actually, scratch that. Remove the whole rarity from the game, and I think that'll be okay. Overall, rarities are obviously subjective. Some of you guys might think someone like Shelly deserves to be a legendary brawler, and someone like Spike deserves to be a rare brawler. And of course, I didn't name every single change I had in mind, or this would be a much longer video. So let me know in the comments below about some changes that you would make. But anyway, thanks for watching. Watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.